Hey guys, this is Derek. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing the CZ Scorpion in its short-barreled rifle configuration, and specifically talk about why I selected this for my home defense weapon, or as an option for it. Some of you may have heard you don't want something scary looking for your home defense rifle because an overzealous prosecutor might take a look at that and say, look how scary looking it is, look how evil it is, and use what they call malice aforethought to try and bring some case against you. I have very specific reasons why I've chosen this over a pistol. Mostly it had to do with an incident that happened a couple years ago. I woke up in the middle of the night, my dog was barking like crazy. I grabbed a pistol and a flashlight, which is just as important as a gun to have in a self-defense situation. And I had to clear my house at night. And because I went from being in a dream to being wide awake with adrenaline shooting through my veins, my hand was shaking like a leaf. And I knew I needed something with more controllability. So why didn't I select a Joe Biden shotgun or a rifle? Why did I go with a short-barreled rifle? Well, in my house, you have a lot of sharp corners. There's a lot of awkward spaces, I think. And it was a lot better for me to have something that I could control up close to my body than further away, like a rifle or shotgun would be in a non-short barrel configuration. So why did I choose 9mm versus a 223 or something like that? 9mm is used by law enforcement. 9mm I can also reload. I even cast my own bullets for 9mm. I certainly wouldn't do that in a self-defense weapon. You only use factory ammunition in your self-defense weapon, in all self-defense weapons. But I can certainly use that in practice, and being well practiced with a weapon is something that's going to allow you more confidence to be able to handle a situation, not only to be able to engage a threat, but also to better recognize when to disengage, all the good stuff to be able to help you have the best outcome that you can possibly have in any situation. The other two things that have influenced my decision, like I said, mostly it's just because it's going to give me the features that are going to allow me to have the most controllability and the best way to easily identify targets, or if they're not targets, like my family members or loved ones. The other two things, one is a media source from Adam Kraut. He is an attorney specializing in gun law. He's lobbying to be a part of the board of directors of the NRA, and he also does some videos for the YouTube channel called The Gun Collective. This is what he has to say about the concern of things looking too tactical.
I have been unable to find a documented instance where a modified gun was the entire basis for a criminal charging and conviction in relation to a self-defense shooting. Is it something that could potentially cause you a headache? Yeah, possibly. It's all going to depend on the circumstances surrounding the incident and the attorneys involved.
Some of you may have also heard of Massad Ayoob. He runs an organization called the Massad Ayoob Group that teach, among other things, self-defense classes. He's a retired law enforcement officer, and he's written many books on the subject of self-defense law, self-defense shootings, that kind of thing. And he's often called as an expert witness in some self-defense shooting situations. This is on something called the Survival Podcast by Jack Spirko. This is what he has to say about the same subject.
What about the appearance of a weapon? I've seen folks, they have their tactical shotgun for home defense, and they've got heat shields and extended magazines and things like that. And my view has always been that a shotgun is a shotgun, and it performs pretty much the same way. And a standard short-barreled sporting shotgun may give an overzealous defense attorney less ammunition than holding up, because if it's got a bayonet logo on it, he's probably going to find a bayonet and stick it on there, and he's going to try to make a lot of theatrics out of that.
Very true. Jack, I see you've done your research, because that kind of stuff does come up. It does mean that if you keep an AR-15 rifle in your home, as I do for personal protection, that you be able to articulate why you chose it. In my case, it's because the adjustable stock allows the gun to, in an instant, be configured to fit me or my girlfriend, who's 10 inches shorter with proportionally shorter arms. That its light recoil allows rapid fire on multiple assailants. And my research has shown that increasingly home invaders tend to be larger groups than, was once the case. And that with modern ammunition, the .223 rifle bullet is less likely to shoot through walls and endanger, neighbors or people elsewhere in the apartment building. If you can explain, this is the rationale, here is the proof, here is the research that I did, and here is why I made that choice, I think you'll be able to win that fight.
So the clip from that podcast and the video from Adam aren't ways for me to justify why I can have this. They are just helping to put to rest my fears, because it's almost like in this country we have to balance my desire to defend my family as best as possible and to feel as safe as possible in my own home, where nobody should be intruding into, with the fear that somebody out there who's trying to further their career is going to somehow construe that into some evil intent. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So don't take what I say as a way to try and justify why I have this. It's just a way to help ease my fears, because ultimately this is what I want. I mean, if people could, this is what they would want. They would want the most control, the best outcome as possible. I mean, that's the bottom line. You want the best outcome possible should the worst happen. So let me go over some of the features, why I've chosen this, some of the features that don't really have to do with home defense that I've put on. These quick detach mounts, which attach to a Magpul sling that I have. That's a single point as well as a double point sling. That's mostly for rabbit hunting, if I ever want to go rabbit hunting. Sometimes I do that on occasion. The vertical foregrip. So this comes in a pistol configuration. If you put a vertical foregrip on it, that classifies it as an any other weapon. And you still need a tax stamp for the government. It's only $5, but you still have to wait a long time and get your tax stamp, or you could face up to 10 years in federal prison. I had to wait 13 months and 1 day for mine to come back, not for an any other weapon, but as a short-barreled rifle. So don't hold your breath on that if you decide to go this route, but I do like having the stock because it's adjustable. It has 3 different positions so that my wife can use this and be comfortable with it. The stock gives me 3 points of contact: my shoulder, my right hand, and my left hand, giving me the most controllability as possible. The capacity. This capacity is pretty similar to some of the pistols that are coming out these days. I believe Smith & Wesson does one that I know has over 21. It's a 9mm. I forget the model. I'll have to mark it at the bottom of the screen. But they come with a 20-round magazine, I believe. And you can get 30-round. Some people are using AR-15s as home defense these days. So I just went with the 30-round magazine, even though I probably won't keep it all the way full, just because it compresses the spring a lot. But there is that option: 30-round mags, 20-round mags, and 10-round mags. Another thing that you don't see on this is I've changed the trigger spring. Why on earth would I change the trigger spring on a self-defense weapon? Well, the factory trigger is so bad, and those of you who own a CZ Scorpion can attest to this, but the factory trigger is so bad that I was missing a lot of shots when I was going out and shooting this thing. I was horribly inaccurate with it. It was gritty, it was hard, it was really strong as far as the amount of pull you need on it. It was over 10 pounds. Just about the worst trigger that I've ever used in any weapon. And so changing the trigger spring on this does not make it a light trigger. You don't want a light trigger for a self-defense weapon. You want a middle-of-the-road trigger. Putting the trigger spring in this makes this trigger right at about where my Glock triggers are. 4.5 to 5 pounds. Glocks are widely used by law enforcement across the nation. They're widely used because the triggers on those are not too light, they're not too hard, they're not so hard that you're going to be messing up your accuracy with them, and they're not so light that you could accidentally discharge your weapon, which is exactly where I want it to be. I don't want it to be so hard that it's making me miss, shoot through a wall, into a family member's room, or into my neighbor's house. So that's why I've changed it. It's not a light trigger, it is a middle of the road trigger now. That's why I had to do that, otherwise I wouldn't even messed with it. The sights are done by, the sight I should say, is done by Osprey Global. And I don't really care for that. They told me that it was not for exclusively for law enforcement or military. I think they did that, as far as I understand, to try and advertise, to try and make it seem more tactical than it actually is, so that they can get more military and law enforcement sales. But it's a reflex sight. It's just like an EOTech. So it's a holographic sight. I'll cut in some footage of me looking through it, or the camera looking through it, so you can kind of see and have an idea of what it is about. But it projects an image out in front of you, so it looks like your crosshairs are floating out in the middle of the room. So if you, the reason that I chose this is because it's the only sight I've been able to use where you can have both eyes wide open. Normally, that's not a problem with a lot of people because they're very dominant in one eye. I am not. My eyes are pretty evenly dominant, I would say. And so in order to, even with years of practice, I still have to squint down my left eye a little bit. It's still open, but I squint it down a little bit, and that helps me acquire a better sight picture with my right eye because I'm right-handed. So there's that reason I chose it. It has a huge field of view. The viewfinder is I'm not exactly sure if that's what it's called, but the area that you're looking through is quite large. So having both eyes open can allow me to have the most awareness of my environment as possible, and that's what I want. I want to make sure that if somebody or my dog is running in and out of my periphery, that I'm aware of that, and that I'm not accidentally shooting something that I'm not trying to defend myself against. The other reason is it's illuminated. So at night, even if I have a problem with my flashlight, the reticle is illuminated. It's not like iron sights where I'm having to have enough light to be able to see those. Another thing is that is unique to holographic sights is that for those of you who are familiar with firearms, on iron sights or a lot of different sights, you have to choose between focusing on the front sight, on the rear sight, or on your target. And there's a lot of different methodologies about what you do. There's even an organization called Front Sight that have named their organization about the idea that you focus on the front sight. Well, with a holographic sight, you don't have to worry about that. You focus on your target, and your crosshairs are in focus. Your sights are in focus. Everything is in focus. So having everything in focus is going to be very important when I'm in a very stressful situation. And so that's why I've chosen that as my sight. This is a Magpul rail mount. It kind of goes off to the side. I did notice that it interferes a little bit with the charging handle here, so I might have to get an extended charging handle later on, just because I can still actuate it. I'm not going to do that on camera, but I can still actuate it and put it up, but it just it gets in the way a little bit. So I might have to get the extended charging handle done by, well, several different companies make one, but HB Industries makes one that I might get. In conclusion, I also want to say that I've gone with this over a pistol because I make a lot of videos public. They're all on YouTube. They show some of the guns I have, including this one, and they show people that, hey, this person has something of value that they might want to acquire. And so I've had to harden my house. I won't go into details about how I've done that, obviously, but I've had to harden it to the point where both the physical structure itself and electronics, alarms, that kind of things, video cameras. They've made it so that I'm confident my family, most importantly, will be safe, but also my things, and not only when we're here, but when we're away from our home. So all those things will hopefully help me to achieve that and just give me the best security for my family as possible, which is what we all want, right? A man's home is his castle, or a woman's home is her castle. We want to feel safe there. That's the idea behind it. Whether or not you are a gun person, I invite you to take responsibility for your family's safety and for your own safety. What I mean by that is that let the professionals do their job. They do an excellent job, but they cannot be everywhere at once, and they will try their hardest to get to you as soon as they can. But it often takes, I'm just talking average police times here, it can take 10 to 15 minutes in the quickest scenarios. Or they could be just down the street. You just don't know. You have to assume that when you need them the most, they could be on a very important call on the other side of town. And you have to be able to do what you can for yourself and for your family until the professionals get there. Let them do their job. But there is a time period where you will need to take care of yourself, and there's nobody else that you can rely on. If you don't want to have any kind of defensive weapon like a taser or a paintball gun or anything, or a baseball bat, then I'd invite you to take steps to harden your home. There are plenty of videos out there that you can watch that will show you how to harden your home. But the purpose of this video is to explain why I've selected this firearm for home defense. And I hope I was able to explain that well. I hope I've given you guys some things to think about when it comes to home defense. I want to make it clear why I have the features on this weapon that I do. And I feel like this is going to give me the best possible scenario in a horrible situation. This is Derek reminding you, you're working too hard. See you next time.